an awful lot of people, and this is why it's become such a big political football now, because, you know, it's not enough any longer for the people who are the sort of apologists for the policy to say, oh, but we have to be welcoming, that's what we're famous for, you know, because it's gone way beyond that now. And ordinary parts of Britain have been changed and have been altered irrevocably by the numbers, purely the numbers.
Well, it's always been about the numbers. It's never been about race or culture or creed or religion or whoever they are. It's always about how can a country accept the volume, as we've done, of 5 million new people, that's on top of our population, in 10 years. Yeah. How do you house them? So you house them by the fact that we've now got 260,000 houses being built every year and not a house price being dropped. How do you employ them? Well, we've had a decline in employment, but you have them reducing wages in some of the big areas of the cities, which is exactly what some of the large corporates would be delighted about. But of course, many of them are being funded through asylum applications to stay here and additional cost. How do you treat them with health? Where do you put their children for education? What happens to the impacts on roads? Indeed, even going down to water, sewage, and all the infrastructure of the country. And what this government is failing to do, and what the opposition has got no plan for, is that these numbers will continue. We will estimate that we'll have another 2.5 million people in this country in the next 5 years. Give us a plan when these numbers are here.
Right. And also, you know, give us a plan as to what to do with them. You can't just keep putting people in hotels. You can't keep putting people in housing developments, you know, because we're now seeing more and more stories of housing developments growing up where certain percentages of them are being made available for asylum seekers and or, you know, economic migrants or people who are coming from Ukraine or Hong Kong. And people will start to get, you know, what can they be described as peed off. They're going to go, hang on a minute, you know, I've been waiting for an affordable house for a long time. I've been waiting to get my family somewhere better to live. And here are people arriving from somewhere else getting a priority ahead of me. It's a recipe for civil unrest, I'm afraid.
I think you're beginning to see civil unrest at smaller levels. It began with COVID, where people were taking masks off or ripping signs down or being unhappy with the police. At that stage, we've seen civil unrest in small ways in the way that you, Les, and where the vandalisation of the ULEZ there's kind of cameras and anything monitoring them. You've seen the destruction of places where people are being restricted from going into areas with their cars. And already people are very upset, as you saw, Mike, about those in Yorkshire, where they've been very clearly told it's the Afghans first under the government scheme and you come second. I always look to the fact that we've got other big policy issues. In housing, there are 250,000 people who are born here living in accommodation with their families, which is bedsits. We've got over 1 million elderly people in this country seriously suffering because of energy costs. And what are you going to do with them when they start seeing other countries now being put ahead of them? And here we have a visible head of them. We've got a visible group of people being put ahead of students in Huddersfield. Yeah. And that's no longer an argument that people say it doesn't happen. It's now being seen to happen.
Well, exactly right. And also the number of towns now that I get from reports every single week of another hotel taken off the list of hotels that anybody can stay in because it's been commandeered by Serco or one of these other companies. You know, Rishi Sunak said he was going to stop that practice, but it's still going on. And there's still more hotels with every week that passes. You know, the Bibbys Stockholm thing was a bit of a stunt, a bit of a joke. Didn't really work anyway. There's I think there's 50 people on there at tops. And there's more people than that coming every single day.
Yeah, well, you'd need at least 100 Bibbys or at least another 4 or 5 camps. Yeah. I mean, I once made it, a jest and cheeky jest when Prince Charles said we should be open and welcoming to all the migrant refugees. Well, he has an estate in Scotland the size of Liverpool. Yeah. So perhaps we can put them all there in camps and enable them to have good accommodation on his estate. Yes. And that certainly would take up all the people coming on the boat last year, all of those coming this year. But the very clear issue is that those people are still coming across the channel. We now know that there are still thousands, 20,000 last year, coming across on the backs of boats and lorries. And so the numbers are not going to go away. And there is a failure at the heart of this government and a failure in the opposition to accept that this is a major issue that they will have to deal with too.